If you want to recover from anxiety, you need the complete approach. You may have heard that somatic techniques are the answer, things like diaphragmatic breathing and nervous system regulation. And while these are super helpful, they're incomplete as a full treatment. Or you might have heard that cognitive behavioral therapy is the answer. And the focus has been on how you think, stopping rumination, changing your thoughts, identifying your cognitive distortions. And again, while very helpful, incomplete. So if you've been trying these techniques and they're helping maybe, but not really helping enough, it's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because there are two other pieces that nobody talks about. So I want to share with you why the somatic and the cognitive help. And then one of the missing pieces is what ties those together. And the other missing piece is what retrains your ancient brain to begin to have different responses. So let's start with what anxiety is, because this actually shapes everything. So, anxiety is both a physiological event in the body and a cognitive event in our minds. And it's actually a natural emotion. In some situations, a small, manageable amount of anxiety can really help us focus, stay on target, get things done. It can give us the motivation to address a problem once we've identified it. And a lot of anxiety is actually rooted in our ancient survival responses, our amygdala, our fight, flight, freeze response. So this makes it complex, but the good news is that it is possible to recover from anxiety. I really want to communicate that. In my work as a psychotherapist with people over 20 years, helping people with their anxiety was actually very satisfying because they could make great progress when they put it all together and they were willing to practice the techniques. So the somatic techniques work bottoms up. That means they start in the body and they will eventually calm your cognitions. And those cognitive techniques work top down and can eventually calm down your body because you begin to think about things differently. But there's a piece that ties these together. There's a part of your brain that kicks in to say, you're having somatic anxiety and you need to do this, meaning breathe more calmly, go for a walk, do something to get out of the cycle. And that part of the brain will also say, hey, these thoughts, they're just not helpful. So, this part of the brain is something I call the observer brain. And the observer brain kind of steps back and looks at your thought. It's not like consumed by them. It's not in the middle of them. You've got the anxious story going in your head, and you could be totally in that thought if you're in an anxious state and your body's responding to the dramatic story, to the catastrophizing. You're almost fully living it. But a different part of your brain can begin to look at that and see what's going on. Hey, I'm doing that again. I'm making up a story, my body is responding, and it's not actually happening. Now, this observer brain also helps with the somatic piece because the observer brain could also be okay, you're having that racing heart or palpitations or nausea, and you already know this isn't a medical problem. You've already had it checked out. So something triggered this. I may not know what right now, but I know something triggered it. So I know I need to begin to utilize those somatic techniques. So this observer brain is extremely important for anxiety recovery. And what develops this observer brain? Right now, even as you're listening to this, your observer brain is beginning to develop more. Therapy, psychotherapy, talking these things through can often develop the observer brain. One of the best techniques to develop the observer brain is mindful meditation. And I know this is hard for a lot of people, but it is possible even if you have anxiety. But when you sit in mindfulness meditation, you become really aware of what your habitual thought patterns are and how those thought patterns are impacting you somatically. Or if you tend to experience things somatically first, which many people do, you'll begin to see how those somatic feelings trigger anxious thoughts. So, really, anything that begins to help you see your patterns in a non judgmental way will help you to develop this observer brain. And now, the second thing I want to talk about, which I mentioned gets left out of conversation a lot, is that it's actually changes in your behavior that retrain your old brain, your amygdala. Your amygdala doesn't really respond to logic. Even your emotional brain, like your emotional brain, you can think of it like a puppy's brain. If you talk to a puppy and tell it to calm down or whatever, it is not going to respond well. If you get down on the floor and hug it, it will respond better. But if overall you are guiding it and teaching it in the behaviors that will help it be calmer, that will be the most effective. So, cognitive behavioral therapy does incorporate behavior change, but it does seem, particularly in popular media, that everybody has translated CBT into cognitions and forgotten that behavior piece. But the research shows with almost all anxiety types that changing behavior is the most important element. Now, I want to give you some specifics for all of this so you have a few things to walk away from this video with so you can practice. But first, I want to mention that I do have a free webinar called Rewire Your Brain for Joy and Confidence, and it goes into more detail about how we develop this observer brain and how we bring behavior change into our lives to really affect lasting change in our mood. So I'll pop the QR code here on the screen. The link is in the description to the video. Many people have told me it is a super helpful webinar, so I invite you to join that. Okay, so with behavior, using your cognitive brain and your observer brain, which is much less judgmental, identify what behaviors contribute to any kind of compulsive anxiety cycle you might have. For example, if you have health anxiety, you might somewhat compulsively research different somatic symptoms, different health issues. It might give you temporary relief to do that, but that temporary relief maintains a cycle of anxiety and compulsive behavior. So that would be a behavior to identify and begin to say, okay, can't go there. Other examples could be that if you have agoraphobia, you begin to not leave your house. And I know this is going to sound really hard, and I do not mean to say this is easy in any way, but long term change and recovery will require you to leave your house. That's why exposure therapy is so critically important for panic attacks, agoraphobia, and other anxiety disorders. And the gold standard for OCD treatment is ERP, exposure and response prevention. So this focuses on increasing the person's tolerance for feeling the anxiety gradually, and then preventing the response, which tends to give the person with OCD some relief. Classic example of somebody who washes their hands too much and is worried about germs or disease or giving somebody else a disease. The anxiety builds and builds until the person engages in the compulsive action, which gives them the relief. But this simply maintains the cycle. And this concept of gradually increasing your tolerance for those feelings of anxiety is also incorporated in one of the most effective therapy techniques for panic attacks. And that's something called interoceptive exposure. And interoceptive means looking inside and identifying your sensations. So, how your stomach feels or how your heart is feeling. And all of those uncomfortable panic symptoms that can lead somebody into a complete panic attack and spiral, gradually increasing one's tolerance of those feelings, along with that observer brain that says, okay, we know this is not dangerous. We don't like it, very uncomfortable, but we don't have to keep spiraling and we can tolerate it. That's actually shown to be one of the most effective techniques for panic disorder. So I'm mentioning these different disorders because even if you have sort of a generalized anxiety disorder, these concepts can be incorporated into how you think about what you're tolerating in a positive sense. I know that could also be a negative, but what can you tolerate without jumping right into the behavior that comes out of your anxiety? So, I'm going to summarize the complete approach for you to help you organize how you approach your anxiety recovery. And before I do that, if you've been getting value out of this video, please do hit that like button, pop a comment below, and let me know what you'd like me to expand upon. Which of these items would you like to hear more about? And what questions do you have? Because that really helps me as I develop my next videos. And then also, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. It really is a big help in my bringing this information worldwide. And I am planning a more extensive video on this behavioral piece. Okay, so keeping in mind that anxiety is a full mind and body issue, you want to learn those somatic techniques, and those could be grounding techniques, and I will link a video here on that. Diaphragmatic breathing, I have a couple of videos on that. Overall means of relaxing and calming your overall physiology. So those are sort of like the ground of the tools to use. And the more you practice those things, the more you practice grounding techniques and diaphragmatic breathing, the easier they become to access when you are anxious. If you don't practice them kind of continually, like I usually recommend for diaphragmatic breathing, practice it 3 times a day, 5 minutes at a time, and not when you're particularly anxious. That could also be seen as a behavior, a repeated behavior that you exercise is what's going to help retrain that old brain to breathe calmly on a regular basis. So, practicing the somatic techniques continually or regularly, let's say, will help you access them when you really need them. And then working with the cognitive techniques, understanding what the cognitive distortions are, beginning to look at your anxious thoughts and analyze them as you step back from those thoughts and you're like, that's catastrophizing or that's black and white thinking. You'll give that thought a lot less power and you'll be strengthening that observer brain. And remember that the observer brain is not fixed. It's not like, oh, you either have one or you don't. It is something that you develop. And as you develop it, the physiology of your brain actually changes. And then the true rewiring of the neurobiology of your brain is going to be in changing those behaviors. All right, let me know what you thought of this video. Definitely leave me any comments, questions. Love to hear from you all, and I will see you next week.